left alive?
Yeah.
Are you spiritualizing something? Or are you physically telling me there was a moment in your life, your past, that your life flashed before your eyes, as we say it?
Matt, so at the age of 17, I bled to death in the backseat of a vehicle. I'm looking down. I hear a scream. I look up. I see lights and bang. Matt, I didn't get a chance to do anything at all. I didn't get a chance to clinch, hold on, to move, nothing. Looked up and my whole body was thrusted to the front of this vehicle. In a blink of an eye, everything changed for me.
At Landmark Church, we believe in the power of a story. Not just any story, but God's story.
A landmark is a fixed point of reference, something that stands out, guides, and tells a story. Just like physical landmarks help people navigate their journey, your story can help someone else find their way. Landmark Stories is a place where real people share their real story. Unfiltered moments from the imperfections of their past to how God transformed them into who they are today.
So, what's your landmark? Because your story isn't just about your past. It's about God's power in the present.
Let's get it.
So thank you for being here. You, of course, are Jonathan Gonzalez. And I'll say you are my brother from another mother, same Heavenly Father. And without you, we would not be here on this specific platform. And that platform is what we're calling Landmark Stories.
Yeah.
But I think it's important for me to say how we arrived. The Lord was doing something in your life, in your heart, through your story. And at the same time, as a pastor of this fellowship, always thinking through how to build a bridge. On any given gathering, my primary focus is the Church of Jesus Christ, or the Christian, the believer. So I'm ministering in that way. But there's always this sense of how do you reach those who might not come through the doors of a church. Didn't really know how to connect those dots until last July. You were invited to share from this platform, and you told your story.
Yeah.
We call that a testimony. And it was awesome to see, as I stood in the back, all types of people coming out that night, new faces. And the reason why is everyone likes a good story, or stories are used to draw people in. That's the common denominator. I think of Psalm 107, verse 2, for the believer. Let the redeemed of the Lord say so. And then it says, those who have been redeemed from the hand of the enemy. That's like the baseline of a testimony.
Yeah.
So you shared your testimony, and through the past several months, as we began to chop it up, you had this idea. How about getting together, having a forum, an event where we can find people to tell their testimonies, and let's pack the room out and let's see what God can do. So here we sit.
Here we are.
But I think it's a time for you to share some other details about your testimony, and then we'll go back and forth, my brother, about what the Lord's doing and what we see him moving in the midst of. So thank you for your time. That's a long introduction to say thank you for being here. Thank you for honoring the impression that God put upon your heart. If not that, we would not be here.
Yeah, Matt, first and foremost, thank you. Thank you for your friendship. How many years? I don't even know. I've lost count. But from the moment that our lives crossed paths, I have just been inspired and inclined, and even to the form of convicted to be on your ringside, whatever that meant. I have no idea what that meant years ago for me, as we've been doing ministry together for many, many years.
That's right.
With the common goal to reach people.
That's right.
To present this gospel that has changed our lives.
That's right.
It's been an honor and a blessing to be in that same race with you. So thank you, and thank you for the leadership here who trusted me to share my story.
That's right.
It was a blessing. As I told you, I feel like I was left alive to share my story and to point people to God. So thank you.
Brother, it's our honor. The feelings are mutual. Let's tap right into what you just said. Left alive.
Yeah.
Are you spiritualizing something? Or are you physically telling me there was a moment in your life, your past, that your life flashed before your eyes, as we say it?
Matt, so at the age of 17, I bled to death in the backseat of a vehicle. And that evening, I remember very clear, I just wanted to go home. I remember things being very stressful at home for my mother. I'm not going to school as often. I'm skipping. I'm getting in trouble. And I'm 5 minutes away from the house, not too far from there. Summers Point Mays Landing Road, which is pretty local for those who know where that's at. We're coming around the bend. I'm in the back seat of an old school Honda. My left leg I had tucked away underneath the driver's side seat. And
you're in the back chilling.
Back seat. No seatbelt. Who puts a seatbelt on in the back seat, especially back then?
Right.
And I have my phone up to me. My phone rings. I'm looking down. I hear a scream. I look up. I see lights and bang. Man, I didn't get a chance to do anything at all. I didn't get a chance to clinch, hold on, to move, nothing. Looked up and my whole body was thrusted to the front of this vehicle. In a blink of an eye, everything changed for me. I open my eyes and I can't move. My face is literally indented into this windshield. If it wasn't for my left leg, I would have died from the impact, broken my neck, or would have went right through the windshield and ended up in the bay somewhere. Here's the interesting thing, Matt. For many years, I dealt with this. Why must I remember all of these details, right? People hit their heads or hurt themselves in a certain way, and they don't remember where they came from. But yet, for some odd reason, I would remember every little detail up to where I took my last breath. And that was hard. That was really tough because I didn't want to remember those things.
Sure.
I don't want to revisit those images. But here I am, 17, bleeding out. My spleen burst from the impact. My left leg is hanging from a piece of skin. And I suffer a lot of trauma to my face. My cell phone explodes in my mouth from the impact. Almost lose my eye. Break over 8 bones in my face. My jaw in 3 different places. Everything happened really quick, fast. Now, again, I can't move my face, but my arms were okay. My hands were fine. And after I look over to my left and I see the girl that was driving, I see she's really out of it. I see some blood. I realize it's a car accident. No words can describe what it feels like for your left leg to be hanging by a piece of skin. I pulled myself off this windshield, threw myself in the back, and there I laid at the age of 17, bleeding out. Quick, really quick.
You're sitting there, you're kind of disoriented, as I can imagine, and you recognize very quickly this is bad. What happens next? How long did it feel or did it take before there was any type of emergency response?
I'll never forget hearing all the noises, the sirens arriving, the firemen screaming and breaking, the breaking of windows, trying to get to me. I'll never forget, actually, the interactions that I had with the firemen trying to get me out, or even the EMS or whoever it was here on this side that was holding my hand and talking to me, trying to keep me
Stay with us.
awake, right?
Wow.
And this is where it would happen, that undeniable moment. This is where I believe I was marked by heaven, I like to say. This is where I prayed for the first time in my life. Wasn't brought up in church.
Sure.
Didn't know what youth ministry was. I don't know what a midweek service was. It didn't exist in my family pillars, right? And so, but that evening, something interesting happened. Something as if something deep within me cried out to something deep out there. And even though I didn't know who I cried out to, who I prayed to, my prayer was answered. Here I am laying in the back seat in the midst of everything going on, in the midst of tragedy, in the midst of blood, in the midst of the screaming, the noise, the helicopter coming in. All of this is happening. And I'll never forget the prayer that I prayed that evening. I asked for a second chance to live. So, Father, if you give me one more chance to live, I'll come back and serve you. Man, I had no idea what I was getting myself into.
Of course not.
When I prayed that prayer.
Right.
And it's interesting. I've studied a lot of similar, what you would call near-death or death experiences. They're very similar. They're not all the same, but there's a lot of similarities when it comes to what happens to an individual.
Right.
For me, my whole life flashed before my eyes.
That's what they say.
I pray this prayer, and I can't tell you the feeling of peace that I felt in that car. In the midst of me dying, in the midst of the mess that was happening there,
Mm.
I felt a peace, a sense of love.
Mm.
And then I would see these images of my whole life. I'm a baby, quick. I remember very clearly an image of me in Dover, New Jersey, which is another North Jersey area where my mother lived for a long. Actually, I was born in Dover, New Jersey, so maybe that's why I remember the spot. My aunt actually has a property there, and we lived there for a while we transitioned to Atlantic City, New Jersey. And the last image I remember seeing is my mother's face. I don't know why to this day, but maybe because the love of a mother to their firstborn. I don't know, but that's what I seen. I'm taking my last breath, and that was it. I hear a loud bang above my head. And what ended up happening was the firefighters ended up coming in with the jaws of life and ripping through metal to get to me. I look up. I took that last breath. My eyes are closing. And the last thing I remember seeing is a firefighter's hand coming down to grab me.
As you're talking, I'm thinking about so many metaphors or analogies that help bring this to life, because you said it, that you didn't know why all these images, these traumatizing images, were seemingly seared into your conscience. And I'm thinking about how we say the eyes are the portals or windows to the soul, right?
Sure.
What we see. Does that explain why a near-death experience allows the life to flash before the eyes? Like what I'm thinking of is what's called chronophotography.
Sure.
Chronophotography. Chrono, time. Pho in photo is light. And graph or graphy is writing.
Good.
So when you put that together, it's the writing of light in time. Chronophotography is where you take two pictures, maybe one taken when you were a child wearing a certain outfit. Then you go back to that same location. You find the similar outfit to put on as an older man, and you take the same picture and then you put them up next to each other. Or the more common chronophotography is where you take multiple pictures and you put them in order and you scroll like that and it comes to life.
Excellent.
But more than that, I'm thinking at your lowest point, this dark hour that you're in, and you cry out to God, who you don't know, but who knows you.
Good.
And loves you where you are.
Good.
And wants to reach you where you are. And one of the processes that goes into developing photography, images, is after light floods in, the shutter opens, you click the button, light floods in, and whatever is seen in the light in that moment is captured as an image. And they would take that photograph and they would subject it in a dark room. It was in the dark room where that photo needed to develop. If left too long in the dark, the photo could be damaged.
Right.
If taken out too early, you get the point.
Yeah.
The right timing. So when you take that photo out, the image that flooded in by light and was impressed upon that canvas is what is displayed. And I'm thinking, there you are. You got this firefighter hand coming in and you black out.
Yeah.
So many images just being captured.
Yeah. Talk
to us about what happened next.
What I'm going to share with you next actually comes directly from one of the firefighters that I actually met, which was an incredible, and there's a beautiful backstory of me sharing my story. As you can picture, I made it my mission in life, no matter where I am and what I'm doing, to share my story, to bring hope, to inspire, to point people to the one who answered my prayer that evening. Here I am, young, very zealous and excited about sharing my story. Probably not the best communicator then, just learning how to get through and setups and all that. And I come down from this platform, and all the way in the back, there is an individual, a dude, and the dude's crying. And I'm walking with my wife. My wife was there with me. And so he's crying, so I'm like, cool. So maybe for me, I'm like, let's pray. Let's pray for this brother. Let's see what's going on. Not knowing what God had actually in store for me in crossing paths with this brother. So I walk up and he looks at me. I look at him and he says, it was me. And when he said these words, it was me, I'm like, I backed up just a little bit. It was me. What do you mean? He's like, I was one of the firefighters there.
Wow.
I helped to pull you out of that vehicle.
Oh,
Matt, when I tell you, I've never hugged a dude as hard as I hugged him. You hear what I'm saying?
Yes.
And so, but it was a blessing for me because for many years, I remember what I remember. I know
Sure.
what I went through.
Sure.
But I was always very interested in meeting the people who helped with the process of getting me out, who helped at the hospitals and with the surgeries, with the rehabs and all that. And so here is this firefighter telling me, listen, here's when we pulled you out, you were dead.
You were gone.
There was nothing there. Your left leg was mangled. We immediately noticed that you were internally bleeding, and your face was a disaster. It was really, really bad, Jonathan. We got you on the stretcher, and we had a problem trying to get you from point A to point B because the helicopter had problems figuring out where to land. I mean, we're by the bay. It was a tough area. And he tells me, this is what he tells me. This is a Christian brother, a man of faith. He says, listen, even though I had this feeling that we were going to hear about you in the news tomorrow, I prayed to God. I asked God to do something great.
Wow. Wow.
Crazy.
That's crazy.
Incredible.
Here's why it's crazy. Because with this idea of the writing of light in time, light never stops moving. It's perpetual. When God said, let there be light, that command, light continues to travel. So you cry out to the Lord in a moment of darkness and death. You don't know the one you're calling out to,
right?
But he knows you.
Wow.
And then he has his own
excellent Love
who
it.
are involved. And this is why all of our stories, when we share them, there are so many layers. You don't know how it impacts somebody else. And those that have been directly involved with our own testimonies, as you discovered on that day, here's this guy. He's listening. He's crying. He comes over and he says to you, I'm one of those firefighters.
Yeah.
And I was praying for you.
Yeah.
So you're praying. He's praying.
Crazy.
God is answering.
Excellent. So good.
Isn't it like exciting?
It's beautiful. And I love how you're putting this together because it just takes me back to be even more grateful for the process of the journey. Though it's been painful and ugly, traumatic,
No doubt.
dark,
Yeah.
yet it's beautiful. It's beautiful what it has become, and it's beautiful where I'm at today.
Yeah.
So I'm placed into the helicopter, and I'll never forget waking up in a helicopter. I'm under the impression that they use the defibrillators or some way, somehow to wake me back up.
Yep.
I remember waking up to a surge, and I'm looking around, and they're taking my sneaker off, they're cutting my sweatpants, they're assessing the injuries, and it's noisy, and there's movement going on. And then they hit me with some kind of medication. I close my eyes again. And Matt, I was in a coma for over 2 weeks.
You didn't wake up for 2 weeks.
Correct. Coma in 2 weeks. Do you know what it feels like to lay there, but still have memories of knowing that there's people around you? It's hard to put to words, but it's real.
Yeah.
It's real. And the people that are around you are crying, looking down. I have images.
I bet you more people were praying.
Right. And so here I am in a coma for 2 weeks. They even got to the point where they told my mother, and may God continue to bless my mother. She is so awesome. If it wasn't for her and her, I'm going to say personality, right? Have you ever met a strong Spanish Colombian woman from Medellin, Colombia?
I can only imagine,
Okay.
brother.
That's my mom. So the doctor comes up and says, listen, your son has suffered major trauma. He also hit his head really, really hard. But we don't know how he's going to wake up from his coma.
Wow.
Are you ready to take care of a 17-year-old, possibly for the rest of his life, in whatever state he wakes up in? She held on to something that I
She's
didn't
a fighter.
have. She fought through and she held on. And I can only imagine just even trying to step back into that moment, what a mother and a father would feel. Now, as a father of 3,
Yeah.
seeing your firstborn laying there lifeless, hooked up to machines, I can only imagine. I have heard stories, and my father tells me this. He's more of a quiet guy, but they say that my father would be in the hallways, smacking the walls, hitting the walls, So for me, that's, even right now, that's hard to grasp, how much of a pain that must have been for a father and mother to go through.
That's
so
right.
after 2 weeks, I wake up, but I don't wake up regular. wake up in a semi-vegetable state. All I could do was move my fingers at first, wake up to tubes everywhere. There's tubes in my neck, trachea, tubes in my mouth. My left leg was freshly put back together, so there's staples everywhere. They took a piece of skin from my thigh and used it as a graft to cover what was ripped off, and they used a piece of my calf as muscle and tissue to replace what was no longer there. I wake up to staples all from the bottom of my chest all the way to the bottom abdomen. It was hard, and I was in pain, a lot of pain. Remember, I'm 17 years old. I have pictures. I love showing pictures of what I look like after surviving and experiencing death, and it's a real thing. But unfortunately, Matt, I didn't wake up saying, wow, my prayer was answered.
Here I am, Lord.
No.
Send me.
I have no understanding
right.
of where that comes from or what that means, but I can tell you how dark the moment was when I looked at myself for the first time in the mirror. When they gave me a mirror and I looked and I saw the scars, I saw the fresh everything. It's hard on a 17-year-old. I would quickly fall into a dark pit, right? Of depression, of PTSD, trauma. And then I got very used to and comfortable with pressing a button.
Sure.
I was in a hospital for many, many months. It took me over a year to actually even get off of a wheelchair and start walking around. I'm weighing 90 something pounds with a tube in my stomach because my mouth is wired shut. It was bad, man. I mean, I was in a lot of pain. The button that I kept hitting was
instant relief.
Instant relief. It would send me to sleep. It was morphine. And so back then, we have opiates coming out. Percocets were a new thing. I was also being given a lot of Percocets. So at a quickly, and it was rapid, the way the addiction took a hold of me, it's real for sure. So I didn't wake up saying, wow,
no doubt.
I'm awake. God saved me. I'm here. What's next? No, I woke up saying, why me? Why?
Why am I here?
Why am I here? And along the journey, I've learned this, that the two greatest moments in our lives are the day that we are born.
Sure.
And the day we find out why. Why am I here? Who am I? What is my purpose here on earth? But the why that I was asking was, why me? Why am I alive? And I didn't want to live. I didn't want to have to go through that pain. It was very, very painful.
After you, I'd imagine, wrestling with what you look like. Again, we're back to images, reflections.
Love it.
In a mirror. You navigating this new norm of uncertainty. How are you going to recover? Why did I survive? Take me to, you don't have to go deep into it, but I know that there was an addiction there from the morphine, the Percocets, which is a very real problem, a pandemic, if you will.
It's nasty.
How easy one can get addicted to pain medication, right? And did you immediately leave and after through the recovery and the rehab, right? So you're addicted. What did the Lord use to intervene on your life?
So my journey of addiction went on for years. So I'm 17, and it wasn't until I was 21, almost
several
22,
years of just
dark, of just going out. Matt, when I tell you that my mindset was, if a car accident didn't stop me,
what could?
Then what could? What will now? And it was a very interesting mix, because me coming back from this car accident, I became the Colombian guy who survived this crazy car accident. And again, I'm received by my friends with wide open arms, right? Think about it.
I am, because now I'm thinking this is how my mind works, y'all. Forgive me for it. And those of you that know me know this is true. But I'm thinking about now, you're wearing this tragedy or your new scars, your physical scars, almost as a badge of honor.
Yeah.
But when we see it that way, it's really dishonor.
Yeah.
And how many people do that?
Excellent.
Right? How many people take these things that, whether life has dealt us a bad set of cards or we've gotten to our own mess, we can kind of like turn those things into badges of honor. And then it's like we have a spirit of defiance, and we're gonna prove the world wrong. And like we go down these dark paths.
Yeah.
And the enemy loves when we go down those dark paths.
Yeah.
So we're still subjected to the dark room.
Yeah.
And we have a God who does not give up on us.
Right.
Continues to pursue us, even if we're not choosing to serve him or even see him.
Yeah.
This is what I love about testimony.
Yeah.
Take us there.
No, this is so good. This is excellent. So it was dark, extremely dark. And again, my mentality, I was numb to everything. I'm running away from that evening.
Sure.
I am drugging myself to live and to stay away from revisiting. I was being haunted by the images, the sounds, and I wasn't talking about it. I wasn't, hey, mom,
Right.
hey, dad. No, I shut down massively. And I would go back into the streets in a way, way different form with a tenacity of numbness like never before, not caring, not worrying about what kind of impact or damage I was doing to my family to begin with, but then also to our communities.
Right.
We poisoned our communities, I'll say it. And just fast forward, maybe that's why when God redeemed all of that, I was so passionate in my early years to focus on youth and family ministry.
It makes sense.
It makes a lot of sense. There was many years where I'm like, we got to reach as many young people as possible. I was like, we got to reach as many, that's a charge. But these years of addiction really took me right back to rock bottom.
Yep.
And right back to who knows how many times I must have died through that. I didn't want to live anymore.
I know all this, but when you hear somebody else tell it, and I think my own testimony has a very similar feel in the sense that redemption doesn't happen overnight.
Beautiful.
A lot of people think that like a light switch, darkness, light, instant. It's not. That happens. There are stories where it's like they were in darkness and the Lord got a hold of them, and like the next day they woke up from that coma and are like, all right,
sure,
there I am, Lord.
Sure.
But a lot of our stories, it's a slow fade, and it's a fader, like a light, and you're going through these seasons trying to find yourself, trying to suppress the shame and the pain, going right back to the environment that likely was the catalyst that the Lord used to get your attention.
Yeah.
Was there something that triggered your 20, 21 years of age at this point?
I'm a young adult.
What triggers you even considering God and that prayer? That prayer you prayed in the back seat.
I'll never forget being in my room, living with my mother, and I'm laying on my bed and I'm crying myself to sleep. And I feel like I was taken back, not in a mystical way, not in something weird. I feel like I was brought back in my mind to that moment. And it would happen often, but I would always suppress it with drugs and my lifestyle. But I was taken back, and I remember praying, and I just felt this thing that said, I answered your prayer. I gave you what you asked for, but yet you're not holding your end. And just that aspect of, and I will serve you, just kept popping up.
Wow.
Something clicked that night.
Right.
Something happened. Now, remember, I'm still addicted.
Sure.
I'm still in the streets. My mind is not transformed.
Right.
It's not renewed yet.
Right.
I'm still Jonathan,
Yeah.
Gone.
The old Jonathan.
Yeah, I'm still that. Many used to call me Esco many years ago. After that experience, I felt like I needed to unplug from everyone around me. Some of my closest individuals thought I died. They knew I was going through something. Some of them thought I was even crazy because of things I would do. And I started to draw close to God. I didn't know what that meant back then. I began to pray. I write my prayers out. Help me. I still have some of these notebooks. Help me. Take this away from me. And something very interesting would begin to happen when I would close out with the name of Jesus at the end. I don't know, to this day, we know that there's power in the name of Jesus.
That's right.
We know there's authority in his name. But the more I would write these prayers out, the more, let's say this, the more I was drawn closer to God, I felt like he was drawn closer to me. And the more I did that, the more I would experience this freedom of not holding on to anymore. The addiction began to break in my life. Man, I can't remember the last time that I did anything. Whether it's a cigarette, weed, drugs, it's gone. It's been erased.
That's right.
From my life. I began to search and seek, okay, who answered my prayer that evening? Who was it? Where do I find him? Or where do I look? So I got very curious when it came to books of faith and reading and all this stuff. And I began to seek. And something beautiful happens when someone begins to earnestly seek God, even though they're still lost.
Like the word says.
We're still looking.
Yeah.
There's no direction. There's no, hey, come here, join this discipleship group, get with this leader and learn. No, none of that existed.
Ask, seek, knock. That's what the Bible says.
That's it. That's it. And so that's where I was at in that season of my life. Would experience, I believe, God's power in my life, miraculous power that we find through the act of prayer. And here's where it happens. A missionary is sent to my home, not for me. Maybe it was for me, for my mother. Again, I put my mom through a lot. I put my parents, my family through a lot. And so here comes this missionary. Her name is Jeanette. I hope she sees this. I've partnered with her in ministry many years ago. I've done things at her home. I mean, she's a blessing. And she comes to talk to my mom, to present the gospel to my mom, to pray for my mom. And she leaves a book behind, Matt. And this book it was there. And again, I'm seeking. I'm 21, 22 years old, and I'm seeking. I'm looking for that individual or that which answered my prayer that evening. And I walk in and I see this book. I'm like, Mom, are you going to read that book? Like, what's going on there? It's a Spanish book, but this book is called A Purpose-Driven Life, written by Rick Warren.
Right.
And she says, so I grabbed it. I took it and I start reading this book, Matt, and I start believing the words in this book, not realizing that Rick Warren wrote this book so that, in layman's term, an individual who is not churched in any way, shape, or form can easily grasp the meanings of what he is trying to point to.
Yep.
And that's what happened. I took one day at a time. And then I began to understand the basic principles of the gospel, of why am I here, purpose, all of that. I'll tell you, that book played a key role in getting me to where I am today. It played a major role. I'll never forget getting to the day where it says, all right, now you've accepted Christ, go tell someone. I'm like, cool. A few minutes later, my aunt calls me, like, hey, Jonathan, how you doing? And I'm crying. I'm happy. I'm free.
Yeah.
I found something. I found that which I cried out for that evening.
Yeah.
I found a new sense of purpose.
Yeah.
And I'm telling her, hey, I accepted Christ in my life, and I've given my life to him, and I'm going to live for him. And I don't know what's going on. I'm emotional. And, it was a beautiful, beautiful moment. And so that's where I would say the moment really
That's powerful.
happened. So there's addiction, there's darkness, but yet the word still did what the word does.
That's right.
In the life of an individual who's seeking.
The Lord reached you. I think of how many people don't know where to turn. And because they don't know where to turn, they put their heels into the ground, right? And they kind of go the other direction, right? They pivot, and the Lord continues to pursue them because he has a perfect purpose and plan for their life. In your case, it was a book, right? It was a prayer that you prayed right before you blacked out in the backseat of a mangled vehicle. It was the prayers of a firefighter who was there on the scene, deployed by God to do his service, but at the same time praying for this person he does not know. It was a missionary who was willing to be sent into your house to reach your mom, and leaves a book.
It wasn't at a church.
That's what I'm saying. Like, all these touch points along the way. No matter, I guess what I'm trying to say is, it didn't matter where you were or what you were doing. If the Lord is going to get your heart, he's going to get it.
He's going to get it. Excellent.
And if you're listening to this and you're saying, I'm not worthy, I'm saying you aren't worthy. That's the point. It's his love that makes us worthy.
Love it. That's why we need him.
And if we are willing to admit we're lost, we can't do it without him, he finds us. He found you, Jonathan. And he began to do a work in your heart that still echoes. Because the testimony is built upon all of this. It's all the pain. It's all the shame. It's the good times. It's the bad times. It's being willing to be vulnerable and sharing that story, which becomes a bridge. Because the goal is to reach somebody who's just like you.
Beautiful. Love it.
Somebody out there who feels unseen, doesn't know if God is real. They're ripping and running. And then God uses your testimony to tell them that he is real.
Yeah.
And I think that's why this initiative.
Yeah.
You said earlier, your life was marked by heaven.
Yeah.
Your life is a landmark then.
Love it.
Because that's what a landmark does. Used for various reasons. If you're traveling, it's a landmark that helps orient direction. Go to the corner and you'll see a big water tower and take a right. It's a landmark. Landmarks are used if you're drifting in the ocean, right? We're from beach towns.
Right.
And it's not uncommon to go into the water and the current is strong enough to begin to pull you. And you're told to find something on shore, a lifeguard stand, a colored umbrella, something that can mark where you're at, landmark. And it actually is what brings you back. So that's what a testimony does.
Love it.
Testimonies are shared so that someone else can find direction. They're lost. They need direction. It's something that can stabilize somebody's life. So I'm thinking of, and I'm going to hear more from you, a couple accounts in the Word of God. Jesus delivers a man who is demonically possessed, tormented.
Yep.
Where did he spend most of his time? In the cemetery, the place of the dead. He was ostracized by society. He was cast out.
Right.
He's in chains, and Christ goes to him and delivers this man. Now, I don't want to get lost in all the theology and the other details of the account, but here's what I want to get at. This man is delivered. He had a lost mind, and he goes from a lost mind to a sound mind because he met Jesus.
Yeah, there was an encounter there.
And he's so excited. He's like, I want to go with you. Like, take me.
Sure.
And here's what Jesus said to him.
So good.
He said, go home and tell your family.
Love it. Yes.
Translation, go tell your testimony.
Love it.
You see the same idea with the woman at the well in John 4.
Yes.
Jesus meets her where she's at. She's in sexual sin. Probably does not want to be seen by her peers, her community. That's why she's coming to the well at the hottest part of the day. She's hiding in broad daylight. How many people, Jonathan, are hiding in broad daylight? They're here, but they're not really here. Jesus meets her where she is. Again, don't need to get caught up in all the details of the story, but he meets her, reveals to her who he is, and then she goes back to her community and tells everybody about a man that she met.
Yeah.
And basically says to them, come and see for yourself.
Yeah. Love it.
Is that a testimony?
She told her story.
She told her story.
So we see it all over Scripture, Matt, of individuals who encounter or experience something that changes their direction of life, and now they're the ones proclaiming that which they encountered, right? It's nonstop. Can you imagine Lazarus? There's not much detail.
I love this one.
But I would love to play in just a little bit. I wonder what it was like to be in the room with Lazarus, knowing that he was dead for a few days. Can you imagine being the sisters? We don't see all these details. And again, the Bible tells us that not every little detail is written of his life.
That's
because
right.
we would fill up all of it. Can you imagine? Do you know what that means?
Right. Lazarus went from death to life. And
Yes.
I just said in a sermon recently to our people that everyone in the room has a life after death experience. Maybe their testimonials don't look like yours, right? Great tragedy, car wrecks, comas, surgeries, scars, physical scars, like mine. Again, we're going to do mine another time, but not everybody's testimony looks like that. Some people don't have physical scars, Jonathan.
Right. Yeah.
But they have emotional scars and they have circumstantial scars. And yet, if Christ met them where they were and gave them life because he was willing to die for them, that's the gospel, then they have a life after death experience.
Beautiful. Yes.
And that's why each of us should be excited to tell our stories.
Our story. Everyone.
Because
Yes.
somebody needs to hear it.
Yeah.
And here's the last thing I'll say about the Lazarus piece is the religious leaders of his day were threatening to kill him because they feared his testimony.
That's right.
For the sake of Jesus.
Yeah.
But can you imagine being him, hearing that they're trying to kill him? What do you do with a guy who's like, what? Are they threatening me with a good time?
What do you mean?
I'd already been dead. I serve a master
Yeah.
who raised me from the dead.
Yeah.
What are you threatening me with? Let's talk about where you are today.
Yeah.
Because I know you today. I know you as a man who loves the Lord. That would be my first identifier for you. A man who loves the Lord in this community. But you've also been blessed to be a husband.
Yeah.
A man who loves his wife. You are married. From my memory, I believe it's 15 years.
That's right. We celebrate 15 this year.
15 years of marriage to Ashley.
Yeah.
And you are also a father.
Yeah.
You have 3 beautiful children.
Yeah.
And I love how you chose to name and label and identify
Love it.
your children.
Sure.
Your oldest is a beautiful girl. Her name is Hadassah.
That's right.
That is, if you're listening, that is who we know to be Esther in the Bible. Her original name was Hadassah.
Yeah. Only shows up once. You'll miss it too.
That's right.
That's it. You got that
Who's
first
Hadassah?
chapter.
That's right. That's Esther. And then you have a son named Nehemiah.
That's right. That's my boy.
The prophet Nehemiah,
That's
baby.
right.
And then your newest is
Yeah.
a precious baby girl named Save Now,
That's
Hosanna.
right. Hosanna.
So all biblical names,
Absolutely.
which is awesome.
And it's interesting, and sorry to interrupt you, but like even yesterday, we're doing our last game. And when your kids' names are biblical names, it grabs the attention
Sure.
of other people who have knowledge of those things. I'll give you a quick example. I have Jewish friends, leaders in the healthcare industry.
Right.
What connects me with them at a whole different level? And I look different.
Yeah.
I'm urban, and I can get dressed up, and I'll do what I have to do, but I'm still a Hispanic male with tattoos who does what he does.
Mm.
But the second that I say Hadassah, everything changes in the room.
Right.
The second I say Nehemiah, wait.
Jewish girl and a Jewish boy. Names.
names. And even aside from that, not too long ago, I was doing what I do for work, and I was shooting a testimonial. And when I shared my daughter's name with the individual, she said, "Did you marry a Jewish girl?"
I love it.
Which is, it's just an opener. So
That's all it
I
is.
see them as openers and connectors to build bridges with people.
That's right.
Because one thing to make very clear too is it's not just about us communicating our story. That's part of it. Like we have to live and be an example.
That's right.
You share this heavy
Big
in
time.
your first book that I am reading as we speak. I didn't know you authored so many books. I didn't know you had so many in your back pocket, and maybe it's something we can do in the future of going, diving a little deeper into them. But we literally have to be an example. I can't just get up somewhere and share and go live my life the way I want.
That's
no,
right.
no. Every interaction, every moment, I'm accountable, right? I'm being held to a different standard.
That's right.
According to Scripture. If I've taken this serious, and
That's
if
right.
I'm willing to live this out until my last breath, that every day, every moment counts. So yes, my kids' names have played a key role in the way that I connect with
I love it.
all different cultures, but I love my Jewish community. I love them because I love to mess with them. Anytime, what's your kid's name? And I say it, everything changes.
Yes, I can see it now. I love it because one, again, you are a man who loves the Lord. The Lord got your heart and then blessed you with a precious bride.
Yeah.
And you became a father, 3 beautiful kids. You have been in ministry for a very long time. You have a heart to reach very specific audiences.
Yeah.
You have a target audience.
Yeah.
We all do. Doesn't mean we don't want to reach others, but I love your passion for the next generation. I love your passion for urban communities.
Yeah.
I love it. And that I think that's why God brought us together. I
Love
also
it.
want to say this to you because you're an example to so many people. You are a man of your word. And that's why you mean so much to me. When you said we first met, you felt like you need to be in my corner. I'm a fighter, bro.
No doubt.
And to have somebody like you who has just been a solid friend, a supporter, a co-laborer in the ministry.
Yeah.
And I want to say to you that, and it's not a trick question, what was one of the ways Jesus himself, Jesus, the Son of God, God in the flesh, revealed himself, who he is, to his disciples, namely Thomas? His scars.
Sure. Yeah.
Jesus deployed his physical scars to convince what we call a doubter.
Right.
And Jesus's scars became North Stars.
Good.
A North Star.
Very good.
When we wear our scars, physical, emotional, circumstantial, but we know that a scar is only called a scar because it has been healed.
Yeah.
Jesus himself demonstrates showing his scars, letting a Thomas touch his scars to convince him he is real.
Yeah.
When you tell your testimony and you bear your scars, brother, you are showing people, hey, this hurts, but they've been healed.
Yeah.
And if God can heal somebody like me,
That's right.
he can heal somebody like you.
That's right.
So I say all that to say, let's go.
No, let's do it. Listen, this is why this is such an important part of my journey. And I think I even wrote it, probably the most significant and most important part right now is this moment as we speak.
Yep.
It would be by God's grace that I would walk through the doors of a church many years ago, accepted, loved, came under the leadership of amazing, God-loving leaders, not too far from our community from here.
Yep.
They played a key role
Along the way.
This is the same church where I would meet my beautiful wife. Now, from far away, I saw curly hair. So I said, that might be a Spanish girl. But the second that we actually met, I'm like, all right, you're not Spanish. You are definitely not Spanish. And no, so Ashley is a blessing for sure. And we've been, 15 years. We've known each other a little bit more than that as we met at this church. This same church that I would end up, serving.
Yeah.
Right. I became very, very passionate about just showing up. What would happen if individuals just were willing to show up and serve? Yo, what do you need? What's going on? What needs to be set up? What can I do to serve the leader so that he can do what he's been called to do?
What can happen? That's where it happens.
That's where it happens.
When you just show up.
Yeah.
When you're just in the place, that is where God will provide the next step, the next chapter, the mentor, the pastor who can pour into you, the pretty lady that you see across the sanctuary who you want to meet.
Right.
Like, showing up is half the battle, as we say.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't show up. And I think that is why this initiative, as the Lord laid it on your heart, we're at the beginning of it. We have no idea how it's going to play out, but we're excited.
I don't even think we're in the water yet, right? I think we're outside looking at the water and we're navigating to get our feet wet. This is exciting, Matt.
Yeah.
What's interesting is I know what this can do.
Yeah.
And we here at Landmark, we're set up for this.
Yeah.
It's as if God set everything up perfectly for an initiative like this. When it comes to the production, when it comes to our team, the people behind the scenes, when it comes to everything you would need to properly have what you would call a successful, right, initiative or
It
event.
sounds like chronophotography along the way, the writing of light.
That's right.
In time.
Yeah.
So why we are doing this is because we wanted to, engage a powerful testimony, starting with you. As God birthed this in you, shared it with me, I called it, my own testimony testifies to everything you're saying.
Yeah.
How God has used my story to be a bridge. I go into all types of settings, all types of environments, secular, sacred, men, women, youth ministries, and I tell my story. And the Lord uses that. That's the common ground. That's the hook.
Yeah.
So what's next? What is this? What are we having?
I mean, this is it. This is Landmark Stories. And so I'm actually going to do this. March 26th is our first gathering.
Yes.
This is going to happen consistently. Get ready. I mean, we're going to be showing up nonstop when it comes to interview styles like this with the intent to highlight what God has done in the lives of people.
Yes.
There are so many stories.
Right.
It's just as if they're waiting to be discovered or
That's right.
tapped into.
Yeah.
And that's what we're going to do with this initiative. But we're also going to be very strategic in holding gatherings where it will do many things. The first thing, getting the church active, right? Getting the church itself to say, you know what? Maybe this is a setting to invite
So-and-so.
my mom, my father, my cousins, my husband, my kids
Right.
who are far away
That's right.
from what I experience on a Sunday morning and what I've given my life to, right?
Wow.
This is a perfect setting for the church to step up and say, you know, who can I invite?
Right.
Father, give me a heart. Show me. Give me the sensitivity to know what to do when I interact with certain people and why. Why am I being graced to interact with someone for a little bit longer than usual? Is it because you are doing something? We, the church, need to wake up and be more sensitive about that. So that's one facet of getting the church active to invite people to a gathering.
Yep.
That still the church. You're still going to walk into worship because worship is key. You're still going to walk into a setting, but your person that is being invited or walking in, they're inviting to hear a story of how someone's life was changed. So that's going to happen. That's the setting, the hook. And then the idea is to point them to God, to the one who has changed
The
their
Redeemer.
lives. And then also point them to other ways of getting plugged in.
Yeah.
Whether it's here, the idea is for them to get closer and closer to God wherever they are in their journey of faith. If it happens here, beautiful. Yeah, I mean, we
We'll
want
take
that.
it.
We want that to happen. Why not? But we have to be intentional about. We can get very comfortable just doing Sunday morning services,
That's
and
right.
there's a place for that. We need that. It's scriptural. We are to gather, biblical. We need to do it. It's a must. But we can be very unintentional and getting very comfortable and not doing these kind of events to
Agreed.
reach the people who are seeking and lost and hungry for change in their lives.
I think it's great. I'm excited for this first, let's call it annual,
Yeah,
because we'll do more landmark stories.
that's right.
It's happening on March 26th.
March
You've already said
26th,
it.
that's
a
right.
Wednesday evening. We'll likely have a lot of things happening that night if people come out.
Yeah,
And our guest speaker that night is somebody who is near and dear to me.
that's right.
And if you come to Landmark, you already know who it is. But if you're listening for the first time to Jonathan's story, we want to introduce you to this speaker.
Yep,
And his name is Little John Palladino.
that's right.
The question is always, is he really little? And the answer is no. He's a 330-pound, 6'2", 6'3", former, as the labels go, mob enforcer.
Yeah,
And he's going to tell his story, how the Lord reached him where he was
that's right.
and got his hard heart. And one of the titles, it's a subtitle to a book he wrote. It's called From Crime to Christ.
That's right.
How the Lord took a man who was deeply entrenched in criminal activity and got a hold of his life, like Saul to Paul,
Mm-hmm.
as we say it. But this would be Little John's Saul to Paul conversion.
Yeah.
So,
Well, sorry to interrupt you. I recently found out how many books you've authored. So I'm going back and starting from the first one, right? You may be the only Bible someone reads. Are you legible?
yes.
And now in this book,
Yes.
watch, this is Hosanna. But I love to mark things up. I want to read something, Matt, and I just want you to listen. And then when I finish reading, I want you to give me what your heart is saying
Okay.
after hearing these words. Standing at 6 feet 2 inches and weighing 330 pounds, mob enforcer towers over guards as he is brought into the federal courtroom. Little John Palladino, a mob enforcer for the Genovese crime family. And I quote, John, I never picked up a Bible for that reason, nor considered faith in anything except in myself until 2011, until my 4th prison bid, until I began to read a 20-year-old Bible that opened my eyes to Jesus Christ. The words of this Bible literally came alive and spoke out to me through parables and teachings that I never knew existed in the Bible. But my 28-year-old Bible put it in layman's terms. I can so relate to this. You have no idea. If it weren't for God placing this 28-year-old Bible on the bunk next to mine, I doubt I'd be saved today. If you haven't figured it out yet, I'm proud to tell you that Matthew Mayer is my 28-year-old Bible, and the very reason that I now desire to be a good read myself. What's going through your mind after you hear that?
Beyond humbled to know the Lord would use a broken vessel like me, a broken man, at that time in my life as an inmate of the state. And that's probably a cliffhanger if you don't know anything about my story or testimony. But knowing the introduction described Little John as this imposing force of a man, a career criminal, an enforcer, one who made a living off of inflicting pain. Well, that was my impression when I first met him.
Okay.
When he moved on to the housing unit. There I was as an inmate, on fire for the Lord because of what he did in my life. And seeing this man walk onto the unit and immediately impose his dominance, I remember thinking, you got to be kidding me, because I knew the only open bed
was yours.
was the one next to mine.
Oh, okay.
And you could just hear the way he was popping off and the language he was using. And then you hear all of the rumors. Young inmates, old inmates, black inmates, white inmates, gangs, Crips, Bloods, guards, all saying, yo, that's Little John. And everyone feared him.
So that's not good.
No, it's not good.
That's not good.
So by God's grace, John, I just was trying to live to serve the one who saved me.
Love it.
That's it. Not weird, not in a weird way, but understanding when Paul wrote, he writes, if you don't know the Bible, that's okay. Paul writes this, that I want to be all things to all men so that I might save the more for Christ. When I'm with Greeks, I'm Greek. When I'm with Jews, I'm Jewish. When I'm with those that are outlaw, I'm an outlaw, but not without law. He's like, so what is he doing? He's relating to his environment, but he's not compromising biblical truth, his values. That's kind of how I conducted myself as an inmate of the state. And I didn't know Little John was watching me.
Okay.
I just was waking up early, getting on my knees, opening the Bible, reading it, and then...
So when it says here you guys were in the same... So you were in the same...
dormitory setting.
Got it.
Nothing but bunk beds. So he was literally in the bunk bed next to mine.
Got it.
So if I'm laying down in my bed, I can literally reach out and hold his hand. Not that we did, but that's how close we were.
Sure.
So when he came to the Lord, and that's what he's going to come here and tell us about.
Yeah,
this moment.
I'm excited.
Yo, this moment's crazy.
I'm excited.
It's crazy. I'm not going to tell you what happened. It's like, I can't believe that happened. And I saw the Lord got John's heart, and I began to write this book. And here's why I wrote this book. I heard a minister say, the world has every means and mechanism and medium to minister to and reach the people of that kingdom.
Yeah.
And then he said on the TV, and I was listening as an inmate, where are the same mediums and mechanisms for those that call Christ their king, reaching people for his kingdom?
Yeah.
And the book came to life.
Wow.
And I began to write in such a way that you might be the only Bible somebody reads. So go reach people that won't pick up the Bible for themselves. So John writes this forward, and the idea is this. He had a beautiful Bible sent into him. It was brand new, leather bound.
Yeah. He says that in there.
And he's like, he didn't understand it. He tried. He was reading.
I can relate.
You know?
Yep.
But what he could read was a 28-year-old Bible. And you're reading the forward. You don't know that he's talking about me until the end.
Right.
So a 28-year-old kid at the time, man. And that's what the Lord used to draw him to himself, is a Christian who was willing to take God at his word. And like Paul said, I have been crucified with Christ. It is no longer I who live, but Christ who lives in me.
Good.
That was the heart behind wanting to reach other inmates. And by God's grace, the Lord chose John and took him, as I say, from a soldier of the Godfather to a soldier of God the Father.
Love it. Love it.
March 26th.
Love it. March 26th, you'll be here with us. I'll tell you what, I look forward to also recording and us capturing an interaction just like this, right? Because we're going to have this. We're going to have the event itself that evening where you can come and hear his story. You can come and, the idea is for you to bring as many people as possible that you think need to hear about God. And you know what? And we leave the rest to God. Sometimes as leaders, we try to navigate every little bit that needs to happen within it. No. We need to be faithful with what we are entrusted with. We do the best with what we know what to do best with, and then we leave the rest to God.
That's it.
But I think this is the beginning of something very beautiful. So we're going to have these events throughout the year. And in between, we're going to have these conversations where we're going to be speaking to individuals like Little John and many others, whether it's in a virtual platform or whether it's them coming to our church here in Ocean City.
Right.
Ocean City is a beautiful, beautiful place.
Right.
I encourage anybody to come out here and hang out for the day and record with us.
That's right.
So that's where we're at. March 26th. Any last words? I'm excited. I'm ready to rock. I can't wait. There's much work behind the scenes happening, but
to be continued. We'll put a link as we post this to go to the website to see this first event. Any details, you can send that link out to friends, family members. My brother personally is already taking the opportunity to invite a lot of our friends that we grew up with that know us, BC, before Christ.
Great.
Right?
Great.
And they know my story. They want to meet Little John.
Right.
They'll be here.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a non-threatening environment.
Yep.
Right? There's going to be music. We'll worship. Other people can enjoy it. It's going to be amazing, talented musicians leading us. And then we'll see what the Lord does and says through our brother, Little John. That's it. Looking forward to developing this platform with you, my brother. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your testimony. And may the Lord get all the glory through our stories.
Yeah, no, Matt, as I like to say often, let's get to work. Let's get it again.
Let's go.
Let's do it. Good job, bro. Excellent. We're a hit. The camera stopped recording. I heard him beep. Just joking.
Check the footage. I think that was great.